Mind your health.
You got to mind your health.
Mind your health.
Treat yourself. You got to mind your health.
We're back here on Mind Your Health. David Burke, we have Matteo Esposito joining us today. And we are talking to Matteo. He's actually been on Mind Your Health podcast once before. And we talked a little bit about Invisible Challenge and what you're doing. Today, I think it'd be interesting to talk about something that a lot of people aren't necessarily familiar with. So we thought today it would be fun, David, to chat with Matteo a little bit about peer coaching, recovery coaching, and some ancillary fields in substance use, abuse, and healing. So, Matteo, thank you so much for joining us. Let's talk a little bit, if we can, about substance abuse, mental health, and how coaching even relates to the two of those.
Well, before you continue, I'm going to take this. Or are we just going to restart? But you're going to start right there where you answered that. So we'll cut that. We'll cut that. Yeah, it was falling, so I went ahead and just grabbed it before it hit the ground.
Yeah, that was good.
If you feel okay if I hold in you, I mean, it's a little weird, but I can't have a microphone. It's all right.
Okay.
It does it have to be right next to me, or this is fine?
That's fine.
No, it's fine. Okay. Ready? 3,
Yeah.
2, answer the question. 3, 2. Well, first of all, great to be back in person. Obviously, a little different experience than Zoom, so thank you for having me on.
Excited.
Very excited. I guess I'll start with the Invisible Challenge piece.
Sure.
So while it is definitely up and coming and new and a lot of different routes we see it going, I guess to put it simply, there's one goal, which is ignite conversation.
Around what, sir?
Those conversations can be around mental illness, and that can include suicide, addiction, anxiety, OCD, bipolar disorder. They can also include divorce, the loss of a child, the loss of a parent, the loss of a best friend, anything that someone is battling that someone else can't see. That's kind of the idea. And whether we build a community around that, telling stories, opening up that dialogue, we do a podcast like this would be amazing. So again, it's definitely very new, but I was inspired really by my own journey and the journey of others who I saw struggle to help others.
And what's been interesting, David, is that the more that you've opened up dialogue, the more that you've found camaraderie, community, and people really want to chat about some of these things. And oftentimes it just feels awkward for all of us.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing. There's not a lot of avenue because everybody has those. Everybody has something that, you know what, I'll keep this. God's fine. And there's no avenue to say, oh, look, you know what, I'm really struggling with, my father, and he died 10 years ago or 20 years ago. I was struggling with how I was raised. I was struggling with, so many different things, but there's no outlet.
Well, you know what's interesting? Remember in one of our segments before, we talked about the opposite of sobriety, okay? Or the opposite of addiction isn't necessarily sobriety. The opposite of addiction is connection. And I think you found through kind of opening the doors through Invisible Challenge connection that you never dreamed possible.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I would say it was ignited, to use the word again. I started this letter. It was kind of just an essay for a school project. And then 2 years later, it's a 27-page letter to myself. And when I hit a year in recovery, I released it. And when I did, there was a ton of support with friends and family, but also people opening up, being like, kind of, wow, if you can tell this story, like my anxiety is really bad, or like my OCD's been troubling me in the locker room. So I found with opening up, and then the TEDx that I did in November, same thing. Like, they're like, you know what, my son died by suicide 4 years ago, and I just haven't been the same. And a lot of people don't say that unless you open up anecdotally. Might be the word of the day.
Yes.
There's a rapper named Logic, and he went on this podcast I listened to years ago, and I just thought it was so cool, and I just had an experience. I thought of it when you said kind of an awkward conversation, then you mentioned like avenues to talk about kind of random things or things people don't want to talk about. He was like, people don't talk about intrusive thoughts. Like, he walks into a grocery store and he's like, what if I just sock this cashier right in the face? And he's, of course, not going to do it. And he's like, but I get those thoughts, and that's the stuff people don't talk about.
Right.
So any anxiety, a lot of anxiety comes with intrusive thoughts. And
That's so funny. My daughter just flew back to California, my granddaughter, and it was a horrible rainy day. And all my intrusive thoughts were, what if something happens or a plane crashes? And I tried to shut them down. And the more I tried to shut them down, the louder they got.
right, name it to tame it.
Yeah. And I didn't, you don't just walk around and say, hey, guess what I'm thinking today? You just got back from Egypt. Are you a calm flyer?
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, he has anxiety.
I would have guessed that.
Yeah.
Yeah, no problem.
We talked one day, we did a show on anxiety, and he was like, I don't even understand the concept. Wouldn't you love to be like
I thought of that sitting over there. I was like, this guy hasn't moved much. He's probably got a still mind.
Is that good?
Part of it is personality and how I was raised. In birth order, I'm 6 out of 7. So I had, all sorts of stuff that, you just had to go with the flow.
You had to be able to filter out a lot of stuff.
Right. And I think a lot of it is just how I was born. It does, yeah.
Because you really don't feel a lot of anxiety.
No.
Look at Matteo and I are like, no.
Must be nice.
No, yeah, it's not. It's not like, hey, look at me.
No.
And certainly, I have situational anxiety. I went skydiving with my son, and that was a little spooky. But, yeah, right. But as far as my kid getting on an airplane,
Intrusive thoughts?
Not so much.
Mine's very situational too. I mean, using the word in a different way, but like when I'm on a plane, I can be like, it's out of my control. Like, sure, I have intrusive thoughts, but I am overall calm and don't have travel anxiety. And then sitting here waiting for my turn, my heart's racing. So I think that like circles back to the invisible challenge. Like, if you asked me 2.5 years ago what my invisible challenge was, I would have said, I'm binge drinking and can't stop getting high, and I need to get sober, and I have no idea how. If you asked me this morning or an hour ago, I would have said, my heart's racing really fast and I'm nervous. And maybe you guys know, but the odd person or the outsider can't tell. So it's an internal battle that people can't see. It doesn't have to be mental illness, but that is really what Invisible Challenge is centered on.
Yeah.
And one of the themes today seems to be we have all these labels and names for things. And you and I have talked about this, but how do you not identify with what you're experiencing? You don't identify with, hi, I'm Matteo, I have anxiety.
Right.
I mean, it's really, really interesting because it presents so differently for a lot of people. How do you suggest opening up dialogues? Do you find that if you share your story with people, people will share theirs?
100%. I think the language around it, I guess, to go to the first piece is huge. Took me years to learn this, and I talked a lot about it. It was a piece of my TEDx is labels. And I have bipolar disorder, but does that mean I am bipolar? For me, no. For some people, they still use that language, and it's just a lack of knowledge, or that's how they identify. But I am not bipolar. I view it as having a disorder, and I learn how to live with it.
Did you ever feel or think that people would judge you if you admitted, not you because you don't have anxiety, but do you ever think that people would judge you for admitting that whatever?
Or being open about it. Yeah, I mean, it took years. One piece of it was like, this is part of my life. I'm not going to hide around all this. Or if someone's like, oh, you didn't graduate from college, what have you been doing? I just say I had to get sober. It didn't work out, and I'm sober now, and kind of owning your stuff. I was going to say own your shit, but I don't know if I can say that. So own yourself and just, one, be open about it. But it's like, all right, this was my problem. I'm gonna tell you it's my problem, and I owned it, and I went and did what I had to do.
So where I was going to go is, so I'm a pharmacist. I see a lot of people come in and they'll get medicine for the stuff they're dealing with, but they'll say to me like, "Oh, I'm so sorry, that I have to do this." I'm like, "No, this is good.
Like
I'm here to work with you and maximize the medicine for your benefit and help talk you through this. And that not talking is necessarily going to help depending on what it's going on, but I'm here to help you. This is a good thing, that you've identified it, and there's stuff here to help you. This is not, I can't believe I have anxiety. I have to take medicine.
I never thought that.
It's okay. It's okay.
People apologizing for what
and feeling like a burden is a huge piece of it.
Well, you and I talked about it the other day with a client that we were working with. It was, well, what should I say when I go to school, or what should we say? And Mateo's like, the truth?
It's also different things work for different people. I know I have friends in recovery who will drink athletic brewing because it's non-alcoholic and hide it a little more, which it works for a ton of people. Or they'll have a lime in a soda.
Right.
I just go and have a water, and if someone asks me why, I say I don't drink anymore. And I just
Right.
find it easier. And a big piece of that too is almost every person. I can't think of anyone who I said, oh, I went to rehab a couple years ago and now I'm sober, I'm in recovery. They're either like, congratulations, or like,
Right.
wow, good for you. Because either they know or they know someone else who has gone through it, and they're like, I know that's hard.
100%.
Good for you.
Yeah.
So I just kind of, like I said, own it and took on what I had to take on.
Did you ever feel a time where you were not so comfortable with that?
For sure. Yeah, like I said with the labeling piece, someone actually told me at my first treatment center, like what I just said. He was like, look, you're not bipolar. And that stuck with me. I had the disorder, but it's not my label. And yeah, stuff like that and learning to talk openly about it took years and multiple tries and treatment centers, and just part of the process. I wasn't ready to get sober for a long time, and unfortunately, or maybe fortunately, it just took multiple tries, and it was just part of my process.
Part of your story. Yeah, I get it.
And where is your story going? What are you hoping to do moving forward?
My first thought was not drinking or using today, and I just take it one day at a time. That is where my brain went. I do feel very solid, and it's not the way I think all the time, but a counselor of mine said, if you go to bed sober tonight, you're winning. And whether I use that on a hard day or a good day, that one day at a time mindset can be used for anxiety, addiction, a job. If you're struggling at a job, can I just make it today? So really taking it one day at a time, I guess to really answer the question, literally the Invisible Challenge, startup brand, potential podcast, recovery coaching stuff.
Talk to us a little bit about what recovery coaching looks like.
So I have a certification in mental health peer advocacy and addiction recovery. So that was training and schooling. And the other piece of it, and I think the way more important piece of it, is lived experience.
Yes.
So I didn't get a bachelor's degree and a master's or PhD and have a license, but I lived through it. So when someone comes to me and they're like, hey, my son is coming out of treatment and doesn't want to be sober, or a person comes to me and says, my best friend's drinking and driving, I don't know what to do. I do have certifications to be able to work with that person, but I've lived through having no idea what's going on, hospitalized, to, okay, maybe I have a problem, to now I really have a problem and I don't know how to fix it. So I've kind of been through every stage of, I don't want to be in recovery, I want to drink beers and go play college hockey, to I just know it doesn't work now.
Yeah.
So I think the lived experience is for me the biggest piece of it.
I agree.
I love having you on. It's really, really a pleasure. I think we could talk for a long time about this. You're sort of a recurring guest here on Mind Your Health, and we appreciate that. Talking about the invisible challenge that many of us have is really difficult, and you make it user-friendly. How about that?
Yeah.
Matteo Esposito, thank you for joining us. Thank you all for joining us here on Mind Your Health. Have a great day.
Mind your health, mind your health, mind your health, mind your health.